When every airline on Earth was chasing efficiency, one company did the unthinkable. While everyone else was cutting engines to save fuel, Airbus added 2 more. In the late 1980s, the world's skies were changing fast. Twin-engine jets were conquering long-haul routes that once required 4 engines. New rules promised cheaper flights, lighter maintenance, and fewer moving parts. It was the age of minimalism in aviation, but Airbus refused to play along. They unveiled something that made industry experts pause mid-sentence. A 4-engine aircraft designed to compete against 2-engine rivals. A bold, almost defiant move that left Boeing's executives shaking their heads. Why build a massive jet with 4 small engines when everyone else was proving 2 large ones could do the same job, better, faster, and cheaper? Why risk billions developing an aircraft that looked like a relic the moment it was born? Because Airbus believed they'd found a loophole, a way to outfly every twin-engine competitor on Earth. They promised airlines freedom, the ability to soar across any ocean, any pole, any stretch of empty sky without restriction. But that promise came with a price. A chain of design decisions that would make this aircraft one of the strangest, most fascinating and most misunderstood creations in aviation history. This is the story of the Airbus A340, the jet that broke the rules, baffled its pilots, and still managed to carve out a legacy that no one saw coming. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why this quiet 4-engine rebel might just be the most interesting misfit ever to take flight. The late 1980s marked a revolution in the skies. Jetliners were getting leaner, faster, and far more efficient. Engineers were obsessed with one thing: doing more with less. Boeing had bet everything on the 767 and the upcoming 777. Sleek, twin-engine machines that could fly farther than any twin before them. McDonnell Douglas was chasing the same dream with the MD-11. 4 engines? Those were yesterday's news, loud, thirsty, and expensive to maintain. And then came a new set of rules that changed everything: ETOPS, Extended Range Twin-Engine Operational Performance Standards. It meant twin-engine aircraft could now fly routes once reserved for 4-engine giants, as long as they stayed within a certain distance of a diversion airport. Suddenly, 2 engines were enough to cross oceans. It was a turning point that would reshape commercial aviation. Every airline wanted the same thing: lower costs, lighter maintenance, and fewer engines to worry about. The skies were shifting toward a new kind of simplicity: an Airbus. They decided to go in the opposite direction. While everyone else followed the twin-engine trend, Airbus doubled down on 4. Their engineers believed they could outsmart the rulebook and build a plane that didn't just follow regulations, but ignored them completely. The result was the Airbus A340, a 4-engine jet built to do what twins legally couldn't at the time: fly anywhere on Earth with no ETOPS restrictions and total freedom over oceans, deserts, and polar routes. It was a bold idea, and a risky one. Because by the time the A340 was ready to fly, the rules of the game were already changing again. But before those consequences hit, Airbus had to solve one enormous problem. They had the freedom to fly anywhere. Now, they just needed the right engines to get there. And that's where this story takes its first unexpected twist. Stand next to an Airbus A340 and something immediately feels off. It's massive, a long, elegant giant stretching across the tarmac. Yet hanging from its wings are 4 engines that look almost too small for the job. They seem like they belong on a plane half its size. And that wasn't an accident. It was Airbus's gamble. The A340 was designed alongside its twin-engine sibling, the A330. Both aircraft shared the same wings, the same fuselage structure, and crucially, the same engines. The CFM56, one of the most proven, reliable turbofan engines in history. Instead of developing an entirely new, larger power plant, Airbus made a strategic decision: use 4 smaller engines instead of 2 massive ones. 4 reliable engines meant redundancy. If one failed, 3 would still keep the aircraft flying safely. It also meant airlines could operate the A340 without worrying about ETOPS restrictions. They could fly directly over the Arctic, the South Pacific, or the middle of the Sahara. Places twin jets couldn't go at the time. To Airbus, it was the perfect solution. Proven reliability, global maintainability, and unrestricted routes. A masterpiece of strategic simplicity. But physics, as always, doesn't play favorites. 4 small engines meant less total thrust than 2 giants. So when the A340 lined up for takeoff, something strange happened. The engines spooled up with a gentle whoosh. Not a roar. Yitui. And the aircraft began to roll. Slowly. Pilots joked that they had time to read the runway markings as they passed. Fully loaded, the A340 needed almost every inch of a long runway to lift off. And in hot, high-altitude airports, it sometimes couldn't. At least, not without sacrificing passengers or cargo. The contrast was hard to ignore. While Boeing's 777 thundered into the sky with raw power, the A340 glided forward like it was in no hurry to leave the ground. One 777 engine today, just one, produces more thrust than all 4 CFM56 on an early A340 combined. That fact alone became symbolic of the entire rivalry. Still, Airbus didn't build the A340 to win drag races. They built it for freedom, endurance, and peace of mind. And for a few golden years, that decision looked brilliant. But the skies were changing. Fast. Engine reliability skyrocketed. ETOPS expanded. Suddenly, those restrictions the A340 had been designed to avoid, they were disappearing. And that meant the A340's biggest advantage was about to vanish. Overnight. But before that downfall came another stroke of genius. A piece of engineering so clever, it allowed this gentle giant to go places no other aircraft could. In the early 1990s, while airlines were cautiously testing the limits of twin-engine aircraft, Airbus held a secret weapon, the A340's 4-engine freedom. For flight planners, it was like holding a golden ticket. The A340 didn't care about ETOPS, the distance limits that ruled every twin-jet route on Earth. It could take off from Paris, point its nose straight across the Atlantic, the Arctic, or even the South Pole and go there directly. No zigzagging between alternate airports. No routing around forbidden ocean stretches. It was free. Completely free. To airlines like Lufthansa, Air France, and Singapore Airlines, that meant money and prestige. They could fly long, uninterrupted routes that Boeing's twins simply couldn't touch. Passengers loved it too. Smoother rides, quieter cabins, and the sense of being on something truly special. A jet that could conquer any route, no matter how remote. This was Airbus's ace card. While others played within the rules, they'd built a jet that rewrote them. 4 engines meant independence. It meant confidence. It meant never having to say, "We can't fly that route." For a moment, it looked like Airbus had cracked the code. They'd built a plane that didn't just compete, it transcended limitations. But technology never stops moving. Engine reliability improved faster than anyone expected. By the late 1990s, new twins like the Boeing 777 were certified to fly 240, then 330 minutes from the nearest diversion airport, practically anywhere on the planet. The very rule Airbus had built the A340 to outsmart suddenly didn't matter anymore. And in a world where every extra engine meant extra weight, extra maintenance, and extra fuel, the A340's biggest selling point turned into a liability overnight. 4 engines no longer symbolized freedom, they symbolized inefficiency. But Airbus wasn't done. If they couldn't win on simplicity, they'd win on innovation. And their next move would give the A340 one of its most brilliant and bizarre features ever engineered into a commercial jet. If you ever crouch beneath an Airbus A340, especially the stretched 500 or 600 series, you'll notice something that feels immediately different. Two massive landing gear assemblies under the wings, sure, but then there's a third set of wheels right in the belly of the plane. It looks strange, almost out of place. Like an afterthought. But it wasn't. It was a necessity born out of pure physics. As Airbus stretched the A340 to carry more passengers and more fuel, its maximum takeoff weight skyrocketed, well beyond what two main landing gears could handle safely. Without reinforcement, the aircraft's immense weight would have cracked runways, chewed up taxiways, and cost airlines millions in repairs. So Airbus engineers did something no other modern airliner had done before. They added a center main landing gear, a heavy-duty bogie that sat right under the fuselage, sharing the load during takeoff and landing. Simple on paper, brilliant in practice. That single addition completely transformed how the A340 behaved on the ground. But it wasn't without side effects. That extra set of wheels increased the aircraft's turning radius dramatically. Ground crews had to learn new procedures just to tow it. Some airports even needed special gate markings to guide it safely to the stand. And yet, that one clever piece of engineering opened a world of new possibilities. The aircraft could now carry more weight, burn fuel for longer, and fly farther than ever before. It unlocked ultra-long haul routes that were previously impossible for other airliners. For carriers like Emirates and Singapore Airlines, this was game-changing. Still, there was one nightmare scenario no one wanted to see. The failure of that middle gear. It almost never happened, but if it did, pilots faced a brutal landing, a hard slam that strained the airframe and punished the remaining wheels. Mechanics had a dark nickname for it: a gear-up landing with training wheels. That hidden landing gear symbolized everything the A340 stood for. Bold innovation with a price. Every solution opened another challenge. Every advantage came with a quirk. And speaking of quirks, the A340's designers weren't done squeezing efficiency out of every inch of this plane. Because just above that hidden gear, they pulled off another trick of engineering genius. One that passengers experienced without even realizing it. Most passengers stepping onto an Airbus A340 never realized they were walking above one of the strangest and most ingenious design choices in commercial aviation. Because on some A340s, especially Lufthansa's massive A340-600, a trip to the bathroom meant heading downstairs. Yes, downstairs. Mid-flight, passengers would follow a small spiral staircase leading away from the cabin. The hum of the engines would fade, and suddenly they'd find themselves in what felt like a secret basement. A fully equipped lavatory deck tucked directly into the cargo hold. This wasn't a gimmick or a budget trick. It was pure profit-driven design. Every lavatory moved below the passenger floor meant more seats up top. More seats meant more revenue per flight. Simple math, executed with extraordinary engineering. Those lower deck restrooms weren't just bolted into empty space. They were pressurized, climate controlled, and fully plumbed like any other lavatory on board. They even had oxygen systems and emergency equipment in case something went wrong mid-flight. And right behind those lavatories, hidden behind discreet doors, was another secret few passengers ever saw. The crew rest area. For the cabin crew, these long-haul flights could stretch 14, 15, even 16 hours. So Airbus carved out a quiet sanctuary under the cabin floor. A small compartment fitted with bunks, curtains and soft lighting. Here, exhausted flight attendants could finally lie flat, far away from the constant call bells and footsteps of the cabin above. It wasn't glamorous, but it was essential. Well-rested crews meant safer flights, better service, and fewer mistakes on journeys that literally span the planet. Passengers who discovered these secret areas described them like something out of a spy movie. Surreal, almost eerie. You'd step down, expecting to see luggage or cargo, and instead find a miniature world humming quietly beneath your feet. But Airbus didn't stop there. They looked at every corner of the A340 and asked, what else can we optimize? And the answer led them to one of the subtlest, most brilliant design tweaks ever built into a passenger jet. Something you've probably seen with your own eyes, but never noticed. Step inside an Airbus A340 cabin, and you might notice something subtle. Something that feels different, even if you can't quite explain why. The ceilings seem higher, the windows feel larger, the entire space feels more open. That wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate illusion engineered by Airbus designers to make long-haul passengers feel calmer, less cramped, and more at ease on flights that could stretch well over 12 hours. They played with light, shape, and texture in ways most travelers never noticed consciously. The A340's interior sidewalls were contoured slightly differently than most other airliners, curving inward at the top to create a smoother transition from wall to ceiling. Overhead bins were placed just a bit higher, and the cabin lighting was tuned to softer tones that reduced the feeling of confinement. Even the window placement was strategic. The A340's windows were spaced slightly differently than the A330's, designed to maximize the illusion of space and symmetry from any given seat. Airbus wanted passengers to feel like they were in something graceful, not just functional. And for many travelers, they succeeded. People described the A340's cabin as serene, quiet, even elegant. It wasn't just about noise reduction or engine smoothness, though 4 smaller engines helped with that too. It was about emotional design, the kind of subtle psychological detail that made the aircraft feel human. That obsession with comfort became part of the A340's identity. While Boeing chased raw efficiency and engine power, Airbus was crafting an experience. But comfort alone couldn't save it forever. Because behind the elegance and innovation, the numbers were starting to tell a different story. One that would push airlines to make some painful decisions. The A340 might have been built to outlast its competition, but soon it would become a symbol of something else entirely. The moment the skies change for good. Airplanes are usually machines. Cold, predictable, unfeeling. But for Turkish Airlines, one Airbus A340-300 became something else entirely. It was TCJDM, nicknamed Delhi Mike, or Crazy Mike by those who worked on it. For 23 years, this aircraft developed a reputation that no flight manual could explain. Cockpit warning lights would flicker at the worst possible moments. Landing gear sometimes had a mind of its own. Electrical quirks defied even the most experienced mechanics. Pilots learned to approach each flight like a ritual. A whispered word here, a lucky charm there. "Be nice today, Mike," they'd joke, as if the plane could hear them. Passengers caught wind of the legend too. Some would even request specific flights, hoping to experience the quirks firsthand. To feel the personality that seemed to live inside the metal frame. And Delhi Mike wasn't alone. Across the globe, A340's developed reputations, nicknames, habits, little anomalies that made each aircraft feel like an individual. It was a reminder. These jets aren't just aluminum and composites. They're characters, each with its own story, history, and quirks. And for aviation enthusiasts, that's part of the magic. Every flight on a legendary plane like Delhi Mike isn't just transportation. It's an experience, a story you can tell long after the journey ends. But quirks and personalities aside, the A340's sheer size was another aspect that set it apart, and that would push engineering to the extreme. Picture this: a single-deck aircraft stretching 75.36 meters. That's 247 feet, longer than 8 London buses lined up bumper to bumper. For years, the A340-600 held the title of the world's longest passenger jet, and stepping aboard felt like entering a flying city. Airbus wasn't trying to be flashy. The goal was capacity without complexity. While the A380 would become the colossal double-decker, the A340-600 offered airlines a single-deck alternative that could carry up to 440 passengers in a high-density layout, all on ultra-long-haul routes. But extreme length brings extreme challenges. The fuselage flexes and bends like a living spine during flight, requiring massive structural reinforcement. The tail fin had to be taller, the landing gear longer and stronger, just to prevent costly tail strikes. Even taxiing became a tactical operation. Pilots had to plan turns carefully, sometimes relying on multiple ground spotters to ensure nothing nearby was clipped by the wings or tail. Inside, flight attendants felt it too. A walk from the very back of the cabin to the forward galley could burn serious calories, practically a workout mid-flight. Passengers joked about landing times, depending on where they were seated. Yet for Airbus, every challenge reinforced their philosophy. If others stop at reasonable limits, push further. If everyone follows convention, bend the rules. The A340-600 wasn't just long. It was a statement. A statement that innovation doesn't always fit neatly into checkboxes, gate sizes, or airport manuals. And its next act? One of the most unforgettable takeoff experiences in aviation history. A moment that perfectly captured the A340's personality and engineering philosophy. Climb aboard an Airbus A340-600, fully loaded for an ultra-long-haul flight, and you'll quickly realize this isn't your typical jet. The engines spool, the brakes release, the aircraft begins to roll, and it keeps rolling. Unlike other jets that leap off the runway, the A340 inches forward with deliberate, almost meditative patience. On hot days, fully loaded, it can require over 3,500 meters, more than 11,000 feet of runway just to lift into the sky. Pilots joke about memorizing every crack, every seam in the asphalt, because it matters. Every inch counts. Once airborne, the climb isn't dramatic. It's measured, steady, purposeful. A gentle ascent that reassures passengers while making controllers double-check their altimeter assignments. And then there's the wings. Look closely, and they seem alive. They flex, dance, and flow with the air, bending gracefully rather than resisting turbulence. It's not a flaw, it's engineering artistry. Those long, slender wings, coupled with the four-engine configuration, create a visual rhythm. The engines act like anchors, emphasizing each movement, each subtle sweep of the airfoil. Passengers often comment, "I barely felt that turbulence," while other jets around them shake violently. Airbus designed it this way intentionally. Comfort over brute force, flexibility over rigidity, passenger experience over structural macho. Every takeoff, every landing, every flex of those wings tells a story. This plane isn't in a rush. It's in control. It's deliberate. And it's a reminder that true engineering is not just about numbers. It's about the experience. For aviation enthusiasts, witnessing the A340's takeoff is like watching poetry unfold at 250 knots. And after all these quirks, innovations, and legends, it all comes down to one question. Was the Airbus A340 a visionary ahead of its time? Or a misfit, undone by progress? The Airbus A340 was never meant to blend in. Its four small engines whispered across oceans instead of roaring. Its hidden middle landing gear complicated taxiing, yet unlocked ultra-long-haul routes. Bathrooms and crew bunks tucked below deck maximized space, comfort, and revenue. Every curve, every angle, every subtle design choice was a testament to meticulous planning and bold thinking. It wasn't perfect. Some decisions created new problems even as they solved old ones. But the A340 dared to be different in an era when conformity ruled the skies. Where others simplified, it added complexity. Where others measured risk, it embraced freedom. And in doing so, it inspired a generation of engineers, pilots, and aviation enthusiasts to think differently about what a plane could be. The A340 never outsold its twin-engine competitors, and production eventually ceased. Yet its DNA lives on, in modern cabin designs, in lessons about efficiency, space, and innovation, and in the stories of legendary aircraft like Delhi Mike that develop personalities all their own. Sometimes being the misfit isn't failure, it's influence. Sometimes breaking the rules isn't reckless, it's visionary. So the next time you spot an Airbus A340 gliding across the sky, remember this. You're not just looking at a plane, you're witnessing a legacy of bold engineering, quiet rebellion, and the kind of ambition that refuses to follow the crowd. Which quirk of the A340 surprised you most? Do you have a personal memory or story from flying on one of these remarkable jets? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more explorations into aviation's rule breakers, dream chasers, and misfit legends. Because in the sky, the unusual isn't just fascinating, it changes everything.